times in which we are facing, and send out our compassion to the innocent people on both sides who are victims of the violent and complex reality
Recording in progress.
we're facing. In this sense, one must also address the elephant in the room, which is closely related to our topic today, meaningly the concept of domicide, a rather new term that the Guardian defines as a massive demolition of domestics, which is a crime against humanity. This is a topic, however, which will not be discussed today, but the Liebling House, with my colleague here, Sabrina, will later on discuss this topic widely. In spite of the political complexity of our times, however, we felt we need to create a forum of discussions that may lead to a better understanding of the meaning of our personal and cultural resilience at large. So why is this topic of demolition relevant today? Maybe it is crucial to understand that in 30 years of today, 2/3 of all the population of this planet is going to live in cities. We also must not forget that we live inside our planetary boundaries and that the building materials as resources are limited. These must be taken into consideration, and we might have to make a shift towards circular economy in order to reuse what we consume. Otherwise, it seems we leave the paycheck to our children. Conscious consumerism in the field of fashion and food is already widely spread, yet we as architects, who are responsible for the second most polluting industry of our planet, have a lot to catch up on. Similar to this, I heard a quote by the architect Hilda Hilberbrandt, which stated that instead of designing a building and then choosing the elements from a catalog to fill it, we should reverse our thinking and define what kind of elements are available to us and then only design the building. So without further ado, I would like to invite my dear friend Annabel von Rethorn, who I met in the Biennale of Architecture in Venice. She created the German pavilion with the topic of reuse, and she will be our main speaker today. And together with her, our second speaker, Sophia Seilan, which I'm going to introduce later. So Annabel von Rethorn is an architect from Berlin. She studied in the TU of Aachen and Berlin, and she worked several years as an architect. For the past 3 years, she worked as the head of business development of Concolor, a platform for circular construction and urban mining. With her work, she wants to accelerate the change in the construction and real estate industry. And my second colleague is architect Sophia Seilan, which I met actually because we did together a project called Urban Futures, which started just before the 7th of October in the Sinai Desert, where we explored what it means to future think the way we live in cities. Sophia Seilan is an architect and sustainability manager working with various offices in Berlin. She practices in the field of sustainable architecture with a focus on circular building and debate in the context of implementation. Sophia studied at the RWTH in Aachen, TU Berlin, and at the Vastu Shilpa Foundation in India. And together with me later are going to be Yasmin and Sabrina from, Yasmin is from the Green Building Council, and Sabrina is my colleague here from the Liebling. I'm going to introduce you both later, and we'll start with Annabel and Sophia now. So please. Unfortunately, they could not be here with us today, but we hope to see you in a later stage. So.
Thank you for the invitation anyway, and thank you for this warm welcome. We're very pleased to be here today with you. And yeah, Sophia and I, we know each other since the studies back then in Aachen, and together with the third, Katharina Neubauer, we built, or we now form a new company, which is called Thomas, and Thomas stands for Transformation of Material in Space, because we think it's absolutely necessary to be part of the change as an architect, to use our ability to and responsibility to change. So I start my presentation. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so we use the term demolition is over. I just said it last year at an event, and I mean it. And the Renovate, don't speculate. It's not from us, it's from, I think, La Vassal, which we show a project later. So Sophia and I, we split the keynote. I show you all the bad things, the situation right now, the status quo, and Sophia in the second part will show you great projects which already proved that circularity in the real estate sector is possible. So, oops. Oh yeah, okay, perfect. So we brought you a very long quote, so maybe you can read it later when this video is online properly. But we marked some words because, and I tell you afterwards which who said it and when it was said. But I can show it. It's he said, "I do not wish to seem overdramatic, but I can only conclude from the information that is available to me. 10 years left from now, blah blah blah. We have to build a partnership to change something." And in the second part, if such a global partnership is not forged within the next decade, then very much fear that the problems I have mentioned will have reached such staggering proportions that they will be beyond our capacity to control. And he's talking about the limits of growth of the planet and the planetary boundaries. And it was written in this book, and we show it later. And when we read that, or when I read this, I was really concerned and threatened, because this quote is from, it's from 1969. And it's the limits of growth. So back then, everybody knew what's happening when we build our economy on that Ausbeutung. So, Sophia, was ist Ausbeutung? Okay, when we don't change our economy anyway. So, this is what last year the new numbers of how we stretch our planetary boundaries from year to year, and 6 of those boundaries are already overreached. And so I think it's urgent that we have to change. And as architects and people from the construction sector, we have such a big possibility to change, because these numbers are based on our decisions. So the construction industry is worldwide responsible for 30% of the CO2 emissions, 40% of the energy consumption, 50% of resources, 60% of waste, and 70% of land use. And I don't know if you know those numbers. Some years ago, I didn't know anything about that. I studied architecture, and everybody was saying, "Oh yeah, you're the mastermind." Not me, but every architecture student. You can do whatever you want. And when I see those numbers, I say, no, we cannot do everything we want to. We have to build within the planetary boundaries, because otherwise we will destroy it. When I'm speaking of destroy buildings, I have some pictures for you, and this is one in Bremen from 1969, the same year as we had the quote before. So a completely nice building, which I don't know, I would say it's possible to reuse it or to transform it to whatever they need it, is just destroyed. Berlin 2008, we have the Stadtschloss, not there, but the old palace of the German Republic, and they destroyed it in a nicely way because it doesn't look like war, but anyway, it's part of destroying identity of the former DDR. And by the way, today it looks like this, so I'm not sure if it was worth it. I don't agree. And we're still doing the deconstruction in a very, very bad way. This is from 2018. It's Immerath. It's near to Garzweiler, which is this whole area will be destroyed for the was heißt, oh Gott, ja, Braunkohleabbau. Das habe ich jetzt nicht vorbereitet. I haven't for the energy sector. They need the land, and so they destroy total functional villages, total functional churches, everything. They just destroyed. And this is Cologne. It's a very nice building. It was a very nice building from Siemens, and they destroyed it anyway to build some new houses, living space. But of course, you could have changed this building from an office building into living spaces. And I don't know if you feel the same, but when I see the pictures, for me, it looks like more or less similar like war, a lot of violence. So in my opinion, and this is not a quote from me, but from an article in the Guardian, demolition is always an act of violence. You destroy identity, you destroy homes, you destroy history, you destroy the space. So it is kind of violent. So we ask ourselves, what if we valued the built environment as a building structure worth preserving and only built within the planetary boundaries? I think this should be normal, but as we could see, it's not. But in our opinion, this is the only way it goes. Otherwise, we have such a big problem. So the thing is, it's not a new idea, right? It's as we can see, the Romans already did this to reuse material from ancient societies, from other buildings. So in all our plannings, we say we have to plan like this pyramid, this direction. So we have to avoid new buildings. We have to reduce our material. If we have this urban mining idea, so then it's important to start reusing the material before repairing, before recycling. And in Germany, a lot of people still think recycling is the way to go, and to use all the material we saw in the further projects as landfill. But of course, this is not enough, and the material has such high quality that it's waste of resources to just recycle it. And I'm very happy that we are not alone with this idea. This is a very nice picture from ZRS Architects from Berlin. They are very familiar with urban mining and reusing of material. So they say we have to think in a circle. We have to go back from take, make, waste to take, make, reuse. So after a building is out of usage, they take the material, they repair it, for example, and they bring it to another building to get them a second life. So that we really go this cradle to cradle path. And these little graphics are inspired by another very good architecture office. We see a project later. It's Alex SY Architects. And they believe, or we all believe that it's super important and it's absolutely necessary to change or rethink the process, because it's very linear at the moment. It always has an end. So the material has an end. The lifetime of a building has an end. But we think when we want to change the designing process and the building process, everybody has to participate. And we want to go from the left graphic to the right graphic. And of course, it's just it looks easy, but of course, it's very complex and with a lot of different dynamics and a lot of trial and error. But there's no other way. So when we start with the construction, then a lot of emission we produce. And so we have the first usage time, maybe with the construction, maybe it could be 50 years, but when it's only the interior, maybe after 3 years, the land, the meter. So the use change, so that you have to flip it. But to know what is in the house, you need a mapping, and this is what we did with Concula. So we mapped and all the material to have an inventory with a building passport, with a CO2 tag, and the quality and all the information you need, and then you do the matching with other buildings who need the material. The deconstruction phase, then of course super important, the logistics, where you put the material in between the two sites, and then you bring it into the new building. But this new building has to design for disassembly and has to be flexible on which material you put in. So this is the next step, that our new designs follows the concept, form follows availability, not only form follows function and stuff like that. And for all the process, it's important that everything is in a very good documentation status, because only transparency brings us to the ability to use the material. So this is a first part of our keynote, and I hope that I give you an insight of what our work is about. And Sophia now shows you some projects.
Well, yeah, thank you, Annabelle. Exactly, after we saw that this process has to change radically from linear to more cycle process. It sounds maybe confusing or not doable, but like Annabelle said, it's working. And in the following, we want to show you some pretty great examples of architects and projects who are already showing and proving that it's not only necessary, that it also can change our aesthetic, the new design of how we construct and we design architecture. For example, here is an I think very great example what we see of the Civic Center in Barcelona, which was designed by architects. They won the competition for transforming a former, I think it was a union building in the 30s, and then it became a factory, a club, that it was vacant for some time, and they have kind of in a museum actually showed all the patterns on this wall we are looking at of the different status of the building. And so the whole thing is like telling a story, and this is all about like keeping identity, telling stories about the heritage of the built environment. Well, but the next project is like one of the it went viral like in the circular construction field, and I think even beyond, because this is like the first building which was mostly built by reused materials. It's like totally like circular, constructed by the architecture office Baubüro in situ together with Circular, who got like experts in like circular construction, and it is like a former like warehouse, this 3-story building, and they added, so they like kind of recompacted like the situation which was already there. They didn't use more land, they just adapted like 3 stories on the existing 3 stories. And by, how I said, like reusing material, what you cannot see is like that the whole structure, like the steel structure inside, is like a reused steel beams construction from a former grocery store. And what you can easily see is like this orange metal facade comes from another industrial building, like on the left corner, where they took the material one-on-one and used it as what it is. Because the fun fact is that this orange former building was like demolished for like just a new building. So they took off this to like use this facade material. Also, like you can see that they took windows one-on-one from 2 different buildings. This is why they come up like with this like kind of mosaic design with like different windows. But even here, like in the project before, well, it tells a story of like where material comes from. Then the other project is like, this is the La Catron-Vassal project we mentioned before. It was part of a competition already in 2011, where the city of Bordeaux in France, they had like a pretty big area with like social housing, and they decided to not demolish 3 of these giant social housing blocks with, altogether 530 dwellings. So the design of La Catron-Vassal and Drouot was that they said like the structure itself is pretty good as it is, and it also was like part of the design that the people who are living in the building, they couldn't like just move out for some while for the construction site, so it was inhabited while they did the construction. So the design, what they came up with was like leave the structure as it is, keep the building as it is and just add more space. So they added this winter garden, balcony, shelf, I will call it, like in front of it. It's almost like 4 meters deep. And what came out was like, even like from this pretty small apartments, they enlarged them. They gave like an enormous like quality change of every apartment, and they even put like more like this structure we see on the top, like some more dwellings on the top of the building, because they said like it's like so unique that these buildings are that high that you have like a perfect view over Bordeaux. And it's also like part of the thing, what they did is that you can even change the character of like an existing typology, because like social housing always comes like with a negative maybe character, but here they say like, well, you can change the image while you add like some smart structures. So we chose this project for the presentation also because this is not a transformation or an add-on, it's like a completely new building. This is a competition from 2022, won by the architecture office Kim Nallewig Architekten from Berlin, and it's a project in Hamburg. It's a whole new area in Hamburg where they, because also the limited area of Hamburg, they came up like with new designs. And the task was like, if we build a new building, we have to completely rethink the process. And also here, they came up with a design where they said like, okay, if we build new, we build as much as we can with reused materials. So also here they came up and used bricks from another building, which was also in Hamburg. But talking about like this, like how the design change is, what they did here is like they came up with this strong grid, because the grid works like as a patchwork, and within this patchwork, they use like different materials, but it all comes together through this grid. And it's even, or like a good example for how you can use or build or design with reduced materials in a very big scale. We are talking about like 30,000 square meters of living here. Well, and the last project is from LXSY Architects, and this is the former like on the, like it was like also a warehouse for like beer barrels, like on an old like compound of a brewery, but they changed it to a co-working space with like coffee and everything. And it's a vibrant place where they showed perfectly how we can use and reuse material. Here they, for example, work together with Concula for the whole material passport. They mapped all the materials in the project. They also came up with like different workshops to show how you reuse the material, how you can also use, like if you need new materials, they use like clay and wood. And especially talking about these workshops, I think it's also like when we come to the next slide, the most important thing is that we are not alone and that we have to like work together. We were like in the quote we heard about like there's global partnerships, and we believe strongly in allyship. And this is just like a few of an endless list of like people who are already working in the field, who are already like come together. House of Europe is like this Lacaton Vasal project where they talk about like this stop like speculating, start renovating project, for example, and many more of like Otto and Opalis, who are like also have like this fair of like reused materials. And then we also like to share on the, like there's so much literature, there are so many books, and there is the, for example, the limits to growth, where we got that quote from 1969, but also like very new literature about like how we have to actually change the way of constructing. Well, yeah, and we would like to end with like a pretty big picture, but we think like it's always very important to come back to, or to remember like why we are all doing this. Like we have this one globe, this one earth, and yeah, this is all we got, and this is what we have to save. And this is also, when you check, like this is like one of the first pictures which was ever taken from the earth. And it's also from 1968. So I don't think it's like a coincidence that the global report is like from the same year, because I think sometimes we have to step out and move back to see, okay, hell yeah, this is just what we have and this is what we have to save. So yeah, I think it's always good to remember all of us that, yeah, we are just guests here and we have to save what we have, and around us is just black. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sophia and Annabelle. It was exciting, both Annabelle to see the challenges, and Sophia how you can solve them. So thank you for doing that. I would like to invite you to stay with us. We are going to have a small conversation here, because you're doing wonderful things in Europe, and we feel that you're, in a way, culturally in a bit different stage than what maybe we are, and maybe it's also interesting to compare and learn from each other. So I would like to invite both of my colleagues. One is Sabrina Zegler. She's a part of the founding team here since 2015, and she's a senior curator, and she did also a lovely exhibition here, which will be presented to you tomorrow. And she's also going to do an amazing walk, which she's going to tell you more about later. So please join us. And I also have Yasmin Yotam from the Green Building Council in Israel, which are also dealing with the same subject and are partners in many different things, like Iris Givoli here has done before. Yasmin is the Vice CEO, and with the background of industrial design, she holds both bachelor's and master's degrees from Bezalel Academy of Design. And I won't go too much into detail, but I would really want to start by asking you, what do you think about what you saw here in the presentation? What came up?
The microphone, yeah?
Yes, because we're recording.
Hi, everyone. Well, actually, that's an excellent question, because as Sophia showed before, designing designing the building for reconstruction, then it occurred to me that the communities on both sides that were affected by the horrors in October are, well, when they go back to where they lived, they would like to preserve some of the buildings or maybe some of the community facilities in their community. So I think that's an excellent way of preserving something that what we have a feeling for, but changing it a bit in order to create, I might say, post-traumatic growth, you know, because if someone is hurt and you want to fix them, then you should preserve something from the past, but evolve with the saving of what was left. Yeah.
So you really jumped in straight to
the point.
Straight to the point. Thank you for being so open and honest. But maybe you can also describe what you in the Green Building Council are doing now after what we have experienced in terms of sustainability.
Yeah. So if you don't know, the Israeli Green Building Council is related to everything that's actually working with everything that's related to green building, from the level of materials to the level of city planning, and we believe in partnerships. So what we did after October 7th is basically, together with Iris Givoli that's sitting here, we basically wanted to address the stakeholders in the ecosystem of green building and ask them, what do you think would be the principles of rebuilding something that was destroyed, the communities that was destroyed, and we did like 2 online meetings, and we came up with principles for planning better future, better environment for the communities that were hurt. And I think and what we're trying to do now is to create connections with the communities that were mostly affected, and then try to give them knowledge and tools that they need in order for them to rebuild their communities in a better way with circular economy, etc.
Okay, I mean, maybe just to let Sabrina respond to this question as well. Sabrina, you have had a talk here about similar subjects. Maybe you can just elaborate what came out of this talk for you.
So we had a talk 2 weeks ago about what does the material remember? And it's actually related to the exhibition that is behind you in the project room, which is called Matters of Conservation, which is showing the work of a designer called Lee Berger, and what she did, she actually collected different elements from buildings that are going to be demolished in Tel Aviv. The exhibition was actually done and opened before the 7th of October. And of course, and it's actually dealing with all the demolition going on around the city of Tel Aviv as part of this redevelopment that the city is undergoing. And of course, now, after the 7th of October, the whole meaning of demolition got a whole different perspective, and we wanted to address it, and this is why we did this evening, where we actually invited different speakers to address this, part of the people that are dealing with the whole documentation of this area and of the destruction, and a historian that is researching Gaza, and also what kind of practices were before the 7th of October and the war were practiced there of reuse of building materials as they are dealing with reoccurring cycles of demolition and reconstruction. I'm not even talking what's happening now because this is a whole different subject. And we invited, and we had this discussion really to think about this memory that is in the materials and what can be done, the things we thought that can be done, like looking at the building materials as a resource after the demolition to be reused, of course, in this situation with such trauma and war related to it. Put the things in different perspective and need to be rethought again. So I think, yeah, it was a very interesting talk.
Okay. So thank you. I just wanted to add that I think both me and Sabrina here in the Liebling House feel that in order to really start talking about this planetary boundaries that we are trying to work towards, there needs to be some sort of a cultural shift. And I mean, just in terms of what we can do, we cannot do a lot, but we can start talking about it. And I think this cultural shift that we want to some sort of bring here today can only start when we are open to also see what happens in Europe and maybe in different places that already deal with it more than we do here. So my question is to you, Sophia and Annabelle, or maybe more you, Annabelle, as sort of the anarchist. How did you, maybe, sorry for calling you that, but sometimes I see you and I really admire you for being so bold and believing in what you do and, you know, bringing your ethical values to the table and really, you know, engaging with it, with your work. So what have you done in order to convince the sector, the building sector, to perhaps think about a shift?
Yeah, good question. I mean, it's not easy, that's for sure. And it always depends on who am I speaking with. So some people are the first mover. It's easy to reach them. And some people are more willing to change. And I focus on them, I have to say. I don't waste I learned I don't have to waste my time and energy with people that are really stuck in the patriarchy, capitalistic system. So I try to reach them, but more in it sounds like in a charming way. Like I ask them questions. So why do you break this down? And they said, yeah, because it's cheaper to rebuild it. And I said, interesting. Why is it cheaper? Didn't you have the right architects? Why? What's the problem there? Can I help? So I try to point them with their fears. So what is the fear? And the fear is most of the time economic. So that they have to pay more money for urban mining and or reusing the material, or just embrace the building they have. And so maybe one other answer is that we organized last year this association, Verband für Bauen im Bestand, so like a club, and we organized some ideas how to make it more affordable, or how to make it more economically attractive to people to hold the house and not deconstruct it, and we give it to people for free. So we organize a paper, or we write a paper with partners. How can you do it? And we give it everybody. So there's no excuse to not use it. So I think it's a mixture of those things.
Well, I also want to maybe focus on a different thing that is important for us Israelis to maybe understand, that you both are working systematically. You're doing systemic change in terms of, I think you're both working, as I understand correctly, on a startup now, but you, Annabelle, were involved in a startup which is very relevant to what we do here in Israel, to really focus on sort of the system and the technical solutions behind it. So you were part of or are part of a company which did some sort of systematic mapping of material. Can you just tell us what Concular did and why it is so important, why it is such a breakthrough now?
Yeah. So till today, it's the way it goes like this. When I'm owner of a building and I don't want to have it anymore because I want to build a new building which is higher, bigger, prettier, I just call the deconstruction company and they do the rest. They do the job and they take everything and do landfill and a little bit of recycling with metals or glass. So this, at the moment, this is how it works. And Concular just said, maybe for you it's more attractive when we do the mapping of all the material in your house, which is without any Schadstoffe. Was heißt das nochmal?
Materials that are harmful.
Yeah, exactly. Or toxic materials. And the material has to be deconstructed without destroying, of course. And we map it for you and we sell it for you. So you get some money out of it. So this is, of course, attractive to those landlords and to those owners. And this is what Concular do. So we are on the market since 3 years, 4 years almost. And meanwhile, those companies call us. So it's very nice that they heard from Concular and said, okay, I have here a house which is quite in a good condition. I don't want to break it down completely, but all the interior, so the ceilings, the floors, the doors, everything I want to change. So I call Concular. They have to map it and sell it for me and organize the deconstructing. And so it's a win-win situation. You also, the owner gets some money from it and saves CO2 emissions. And the new, the buyer has some reused material with a smaller CO2 footprint. And maybe it's cheaper sometimes, not always, because of course there's a lot of work to deconstruct it, to clean it and stuff like that. But this is mainly the business idea behind Concular.
Great. So maybe Yasmin, to you, like it was mentioned here by Sabrina, like this topic of urban renewal that we're doing here in Tel Aviv, התחדשות עירונית, which is a big topic. It sounds very nice. התחדשות עירונית has a very positive connection, like, but we see that a lot of buildings de facto are destroyed. Do you have knowledge of what happens to the material that is demolished here in Tel Aviv?
I don't know exactly specifically about Tel Aviv, but I know that, well, in a worst case scenario, it's going to the open fields, the nature reserves. That's the worst case, and
landfill, which sounds also very romantic, I have to say.
Landfill, yeah, landfill is the, I think it's the middle case. Yeah, it's not the best case, of course, but we're hoping to get more building waste to the landfills. But unfortunately, there is not enough tools or mechanisms or for to enforce the existing law, and also there are many problems with the construction waste law, which I won't elaborate on now.
Yes, it's also a very political one, must say, but maybe this is also not the topic of today.
Yeah, but I think Israel has to do this shift because we haven't got enough territory. We're growing demographically. We are, I think, most of us do not want Israel to be filled with landfills. We have to create more recycling sites, and I think the government and also the private sector understand it, but I think there are a lot to do in order for it to work you know, like in a more streamlined way. Yeah.
So, do you know of any waste management strategies, or are you part of any waste management strategies in the Green Building Council?
So what we're doing now is we created a body that's called the Building Waste Administration. It was founded in 2019. It has אדם טבע ודין, התאחדות, I don't know how to say it in English, many organizations, התאחדות הקבלנים בוני הארץ, התאחדות התעשיינים, איגוד המהנדסים ואדם טבע ודין, and together these bodies are trying to solve this wicked problem. It's a wicked problem. It has many problems, many challenges. One of the challenges I could talk about is actually there is a law. I mean, and the law says that, for example, 20% of materials that are being used by national construction companies has to be recycled materials. But these companies haven't got the mechanisms to check how much of the materials they're using is recycled. So I know some companies that are now working on systems that could you know, gather data and tell them what's going on, and that leads to the fact that they are incapable of to report the amounts of recycled materials that they are using. So the Ministry of Environmental Concerns is not able to know exactly what are the numbers. So that's only one problem. I could go on.
Okay. So Sophia and Annabelle, are there any penalties in, like, is it like, how is it reinforced, or is it reinforced in Europe, or are there new sort of codes that are starting to appear in Europe that you can sense that architects as us are facing now, or not architects but rather construction law firms or whatever?
Well, I think it starts with, we're talking about waste all the time. Yeah, talking about like, okay, we want to demolish it, and then what am I doing with all the waste? And so people, instead of like thinking about like, don't see it as waste, like see it as material that we can reuse. Like we showed only like this facade of this Pisa cathedral in Italy, which is like, well, centuries old. So people are using the same material. It's not even, I wouldn't even claim it as waste. Waste is as a source, it has a value. Because when you then start with like laws, like to regulate it, like say, okay, you are not allowed to do this, you have to do 20% of the building has to be recycled. Or I worked on a project where they said like, okay, 60% of the facade has to be recycled. The problem with laws is always like people are trying to find a way around it. Like I think Yasmin just said it, you know, it's like, it's always it's like, okay, how can we fake it? Well, we use this 20%, then it looks like this 20%. So I'm not even sure if law, like changing rules, making laws, actually, I'm not sure. It is one of many ways, because there is not this one way we have to go. It can only be one way. But like also this part of like, why is building new material so cheap? This is a thing. Okay, if we talk about laws and like waste and how much like percentage has to be recycled, we have to more look at like, okay, why is there like still in Germany we have like on like concrete, like you get it cheaper because like the taxes are like, okay, it's cheaper like partly to build with like concrete instead of reusing something. Or labor is of course more important than like just a new material from somewhere. So when I talk about, okay, let's take the brick from building A and put it there has to be a person take it off, bringing it, cleaning it, building it in. That makes it more important, like more expensive and less attractive. So I think there are like different ways, and in Germany we are also not that far, but I think there are slowly it's changing, but the shift has to happen like within all, like the whole, like the shift has to happen in our like the style. Yeah.
Yes, I really also hope that it should be a positive shift, like when you see beautiful buildings that are built in such a way, and maybe the future or the younger generations will demand, you know, apartments that have some sort of standards. That could be a shift, a paradigm shift. But yes, I think there's still a lot to do. And as we said before, here at the Liebling House, we're really trying to create platforms of discussion. So I would like to, first of all, let Sabrina explain what she does here and maybe invite you to what we're doing. And later, in a few minutes we have left, maybe you also have some questions to the groups here. So please, Sabrina.
Thank you very much. And thank you again for Sophia and Annabelle for this really inspiring work you're doing, and making it seem so cool, because it's so much of a Sisyphic work. It's like it's really it's tough, and the shift that has to be done is like crazy, and we have a long way to go, and we know this in Israel very well. And talking about what our role, or what we are doing here, what I'm doing here, through, I will talk about a few exhibitions, or as a platform, or as a tool that we use here, trying to really raise awareness and a discussion on really rethinking our ways of how we perceive the environment, how we practice architecture and design, how we use material, and what do we assign value to. And I will give like 3 examples through projects we had here, and to demonstrate that. For instance, like I would say our first big project here would be the renovation of the house, which is under conservation law. And like the main topic for this renovation was actually to reuse and repair and maintain what we can, and not just replace with new things. And it is, maybe to Sophia and Annabelle, it looks like a very, sure, of course, this is what you do, but it's not part of the culture here in Israel. In Israel, we used to build anew, and we're used to also a lot of time, even in conservation projects, to change and to new wooden windows or new terrazzo floor tilings, but not use the existing substance. So it's we kind of look at this building as a model of possibilities of what can be done. So this is like one thing that we have done here, as well as have exchange on different building crafts from Germany and Israel, and also a whole cultural discussion about this way of building and what it stands for, and how it can be actually adapted to our new way of life and to its new use. And so there was a lot of a community, like this whole idea of this building site was opened up to a kind of a communal project and a mutual project of learning and building, and actually bringing back the agency of like this construction act to the community. And oftentimes it's just buildings are being done, and it's something that has nothing to do with us. It's like building contractors and like this whole economic system that has nothing to do with us. So the idea is really bring it back and closer to each and every one of us, not only the architects and the professionals. Another project we had here was the Urban Field Manifesto by Studio MA, their landscape architecture studio, and they were addressing actually this whole relationship between man, nature, and the built environment, looking at the public spaces which are actually being are really losing a lot of their qualities, and looking at nature in the city that is being kind of pushed out, pushed to the corner, pushed out, and everything is being controlled and being managed and being and this whole addressing this whole process that's happening all over the world of overdevelopment and over construction and privatization of the public space. So they were kind of looking at the resilient weeds that are growing out between like everywhere in the city as kind of partners to redesign and redefine the public space. And actually part of this process was actually to create a new environmental imaginary of how can we think of our environment, how can we change our way of planning as architects, and through these resilient weaves. And they were also using not planning tools to address these questions, but they created an installation, artistic installation, and they were really addressing kind of trying to use all our senses in order to redefine and readdress these problems we are facing with the environmental crisis, because our old tools and our old way of thinking needs to be readdressed. And the last project that we will be elaborating on also tomorrow in a talk with Lee Berger, and also on Friday in a tour, is matters of conservation, which I was talking about before and which is behind you, and is actually showing the work of the designer Lee Berger. And she collected from buildings to be demolished different elements that can be reused. Here in the exhibition, there are only like metal elements, door handles, are being shown, and this is also trying to create a more showing a value of things and connecting the environmental idea with the idea of conservation and memory. But this is like.
So we must finish. So unfortunately, if there is one question, I would take it, and otherwise, I would like to invite you to stay, because we have another session on energy, which is going to be really exciting. But I also want to invite you for tomorrow for the festival, because there are very interesting architects that are going to be presenting their future vision of the city. For example, Martin Rijn-Kanu from Topotech 1 from Berlin, Alice van Berkel, she's the head of architecture department of ETLL, and Friedrich van Borijs from Berlin as well, which is a very famous professor. Ayman Tiboni and more. Anyway, they are going to talk about the Anthropocene and how they see what we leave here today for the future generations. And we're also going to have sound healing events in the exhibition. So please join us tomorrow. It's all for free. And I want to thank you again, Annabelle and Sophia, for bringing us your beautiful and amazing insights. And I really am grateful for what you do and how you perceive architecture today and the way you act in order to change what we're doing. So thank you for that. Thank you, Yasmin, and thank you, Sabrina. Thank you, Sharon, for organizing this. And thank you, Melina. Where's Melina? I don't know. And Miki, of course, for producing. Yes?
What time does it start, the event tomorrow?
Tomorrow we start with Sabrina's exhibition here. This is the exhibition talk at 6. At 8 we're going to have the event of future imagination of the Anthropocene. So thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you.
יש לנו חצי שעה